com.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the LFC Daytrippers. I'm Gav, that's Phil, that's Kev, and we're going to pick the Liverpool Ultimate 11. But Phil is going to pick Great Britain and Ireland. Spoiler alert, he told me earlier he doesn't think Gerrard or Dalglish fits in the system, so strap yourselves in. And Kev is going to pick the rest of the world. So while you're in there and you're in the chat, throw in all these things as we go through, throw in all these players as we go through the positions and stuff like that. Show was brought to you by...
Hang on. I've got them in my notes. Sorry, I even did notes today.
You did notes and then forgot you were on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So Kev's going.
Well, come here. It's a fair reason. It's a fair reason. I was watching Married at First Sight. It's deadly.
Oh, fuck off, Phil. So anyway, bookmakers.com are sponsoring the show. Check them out at bookmakers.com for all your odds and all the bookies for all the sports that you can find. Do so responsibly. If you don't, the website is still good there for comparisons, stats, articles, and all that sort of stuff. Go and check them out. I am going to talk about some charity stuff, but I'm not going to do it until the lads pick their goalkeeper and back four. The usual charity will be spoken about, but something come up today that we were asked to share, and I have to speak about it. So I felt very, very moved by it. So I'm going to talk to you in a little bit about it. So we're going to bash through this. We're not going to keep you for 2 hours. We're going to start with goalkeepers. Kev is going for a 4-4-2. Phil, what fucking formation have you come up in your mad
head? No, I'm going with a classic 4-2-3-1 that can convert to a 4-2-4, but can also play as a 4-3-3.
Okay, 4-2-3-1.
Sometimes it's a 4-4-2 as well. With the one in front of the two.
Fuck off, annoy me. So, and you have 4.
I have 11 players.
3-1. Okay. Kev, you have the rest of the world. Yeah? So.
Yeah.
Now, Laszlo put in a team earlier, and I was in the comments before the show even started.
All right.
And I went, what? But goalkeepers, rest of the world, Liverpool Ultimate 11, go.
Alisson Becker. It's simple as that. It's the easiest decision in the world for me. 220 appearances, 97 clean sheets, 3 assists, 1 goal. And it's the goal that is the best memory of the whole lot. Not the importance of it or anything like that, but what he went through in that season. And I could just sit and watch memes of that goal all day long. He's a fantastic keeper anyway. But, we paid well for him. And he's just head and shoulders above anything else that you could pick. Pepe Reina, good keeper, but he was Spanish number 3 for a reason. He was good, but he wasn't great.
Phil, who would you have picked, Phil? I just want to see if you come up with the same name Laszlo picked.
I actually would have picked Grab, Brucey.
That's who Laszlo had, Bruce Grobbelaar.
And I think Brucey, as much as he's maligned for his late Liverpool career, that period from 81 to 89 is untouched in terms of trophies and everything else. And for me, I understand the Alisson shout. It would be between Alisson and Brucey. And I keep coming back to Alisson has turned up for us in all the moments, right? But Brucey turned up for us in the biggest moments and won things. So that's the small difference in terms of what it is. I'd love to see Alisson win another Champions League and another league title, because then you can have a genuine conversation just purely on ability. If you're going purely on ability, I've said this on when I used to pay attention. Alisson for me is probably the next evolution in terms of what now are brought to goalkeeping. Alisson is now taking that on another step again, if that makes sense. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what I think he's an immense goalkeeper. But for me, I grew up watching Brucey, and I still have these standout moments. But then again, I absolutely adore Alisson and his goal, and it's a.
Grobbelaar wins so much at Liverpool. You're right. 81, 84 European Cups. He wins
a double.
7 league titles, I think.
Yeah, no other goalkeepers won a double for either.
I think he wins 7 league titles. There might be 6 league titles. Does is he in goal? No, he's not in goal for the 92 FA Cup final. David James is, isn't he?
David James
is. Is he?
Yeah.
He is, yeah. Because there was another mad fella in goal for Sunderland.
But anyway,
what was his name?
But Grobbelaar does win. But I know the goal for Alisson and all that. But the big one for me with Alisson is the European Cup final. When Liverpool genuinely don't turn up in that game. They get a penalty early. They suffocate Spurs. Spurs come on strong between, say, 50 and 75 minutes. And Alisson makes the difficult look extremely easy. And doesn't let any balls drop in front of him. He's pushing things out for throws when they're being shot at him. He's so good. It's an interesting debate, but listen.
The other reason I would have gone for Alisson over Grobbelaar is purely and simply because of the way the goalkeeping position has changed since Bruce was probably in his pomp. The picking the ball up off football was a completely different game, completely different pace. It's probably the only position on the pitch where it's chalk and cheese. You know, we've had some great keepers, Clements as well, but the game was completely different. Completely different.
Kev, Brucey was a completely different keeper. No, but he's a modern keeper in the mid-80s, right? In the way he played the game. They hoofed the ball, but he played so much out from the back, which is unheard of at the time. He threw the ball. But the way he commanded his goal, his penalty box.
He came for everything.
Come into...
And all the defenders at the time said, we knew he was coming for everything.
Yeah. But Gav, it allowed Hansen and Lawrenson to play on the halfway line. It was unheard of at the time. He played so high and so up off his line. It's modern goalkeeping in the 80s. And if you go back and look at all the great 80s, particularly in England, you look at Southall, you look at the other fellas, and what you ended up looking at is great shot stoppers, phenomenal shot stoppers. But Brucey was so different in that he was a brilliant shot stopper. It's completely unorthodox, but a brilliant shot stopper. But his game was more about dominating the 18-yard box as opposed to just being there to stop shots. And that's why when I look at it, it's a lot closer than for me anyway. It's a lot closer than it should be.
Mohammed Gav, you said you're not going to keep us here for 2 hours. No, this was probably the only one where the debate because it was just because I seen a comment beforehand. Marge Apple says Brucey's autobiography was insane. His mate in the army had a jar full of human ears. You couldn't make it up.
He came from.
We're gonna put Kev's team out tomorrow, and we're gonna put Phil's team out tomorrow, and then people can argue over it. Phil won't even know what's happening. Kev will do his best to ignore it, but we will put it out anyway. Phil. Great Britain and Ireland and Great Britain, whatever you want to call it, goalkeeper.
You know, again, it's relatively straightforward. It's Ray Clements, right? For a similar reason to the Brucey piece, but we've had great goalkeepers down the years, right? And there's an argument that you could go deeper into the annals of Liverpool history, but I still stand by for the same reasons as Brucey. Ray Clements is a cut above. Think about the 70s, and it's just Ray Clements. Think about where we learn how to dominate in Europe. Think about where we become a dominant football team in England. It's Ray Clements between the sticks. And every picture and every video and every highlight reel you see from before 1980, it's Ray Clements. You know exactly what he looks like. You know exactly what the goalkeeper looks like, and you know the way he plays. But in the same way I talk about Brucey being a next phase goalkeeper. Clements was a next phase goalkeeper. You look at the way 70s goalkeepers in England play, right?
Yeah.
And they're basically Sabutio men, right? They were stood in the line and they moved side to side. When you go back and watch the pictures of Clements, he's diving in a manner that's very similar to what you see in the 80s. What you see the next generation of goalkeepers become in terms of the South.
His highlight reel for saves is I always go back to that Liverpool VHS I had, the history of Liverpool, which only ran up to 1991 because that's probably around the time I got it, and they can't see into the future. They aren't, Michael J. Fox. But when you watch these things, from in the 70s and right up to the leaves in early 80s, honestly, his highlight reel for saves was fucking phenomenal. And you're right, where some keepers are nearly diving under the ball, high shots, and they're nearly. I'll never get into that. He was full stretch into corners, tipping stuff around. So, Clements is fairly straightforward. And if anyone hasn't seen Clements, I'm sure you'll find a reel on YouTube somewhere, and it's out of this world.
Yeah. Big shout out though for Paul.
18 grand he cost. 18 grand.
Paul Jones was close to getting a shout though.
Paul Jones.
Two appearances where
did he only play two? Are you sure he played two? I thought he only played one.
Two. No,
he was on loan from Southampton. I think he plays at home to Wolves.
And
that was
some mad
time where we were signing about 5 goalkeepers a week, and we still had none.
We had 16 goalkeepers. We stopped doing that and just signed all the under 15s from all over the world. Every goalkeeper.
We're doing that now. Taffarel has about 18 keepers, follows him out onto the pitch every day now.
Exactly.
Kev, fullbacks. I'm going to take
go for the pair of them. Oh no, look. For me, I went with John Onorisa at left back and Arbeloa at right back.
Oh,
could have gone with Babel as a right back, but I just thought Arbeloa. I just think Arbeloa for us was better than what Babel was for us. I think Babel was a far superior player, but Arbeloa for us was probably better, and he kicked on and was really, really good for Madrid as well. But yeah, John Onorisa on the other side. Surprising amount of games he played. He was at Liverpool for a long time. I think it was about 8 years.
Yeah, he signs in 2001, just after
$4
we
million
win
from Monaco.
the treble. Yeah, and I think he scores on his. Does he score on his debut at Bayern Munich in the Super Cup in Monaco? I'm nearly sure he does.
Write it down.
And then he belts one in against United at the Anfield Road end.
7
years. He scored some sensational goal. I only seen one the other day. He hammers one in against Birmingham in I think it's a cup replay. They win about 7-0 at St Andrews, and but he scored some big goals. He scored in the FA Cup semi-final against Chelsea at Old Trafford. He scored some big goals, some great goals.
It's probably the two positions on the pitch, right back, left back, that we haven't had a glut of what you call stars from abroad.
I'd 100% put Marcus Babel in at right back.
Well, as a player, you probably would, but I think when you got to look at it for us, I think Arbeloa was better.
Okay. Arbeloa, Risa. Phil, your fullbacks.
Yeah, Kev, you're not touching mine. So I've got Phil Neal at right back.
But,
now, and I will say that was a throw up because, and I'm not even going to lie about this, I was considering putting Trent in here. As much as people hate him at the moment, right? Trent has changed the game as fullbacks go. Changed the game for English fullbacks, and I'll be talking about somebody later on. Again, for whatever reason, he's not getting a look. But yeah, I would go Phil Neal, and I struggle at left back because we've had some mad ones. And I actually picked Steve Nicol, and then I changed my mind, right? Because Steve Nicol actually played more at right back than he did at left back, and he was just moved across and played very well at left back. But
centre half, played a bit of centre half.
Yeah, but the person I'm going for at left back, and I'm going to put up one parameter around this. I wasn't going back to the 60s and 70s because I wasn't, believe it or not, I wasn't born then. So I've sort of limited mine from when I was born onwards, right? So from 1977 onwards, which is great because I can ignore all the other stuff that happened before. But I'm going with Jim Beglin as my left back.
Okay. Jim
Beglin's career is destroyed by a broken leg, but if anybody watches, and I grew up watching Jim Beglin playing for Liverpool, if anybody watching him was what Robbo is now, and he was a different type of left back to what was out there in football at the time. He was just immense. He raided from the left back spot, and he was brilliant defensively. And one of his standout moments is having a punch up with Grobbler in the FA Cup final in 1986.
Yes.
And that changed the game because Liverpool got the shit together after that row.
Yeah.
And we came into the game and then went on to score 3 unanswered goals and win the double on the back of that one against Everton. But for me, Beglin was head and shoulders above who I could think of, and that's being unfair to fellas like Kennedy and all who went before him, right? But I just went for pure.
Did you not consider Robertson at all?
No, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Because I think Robertson is great, but I just prefer Beglin. And that's what it boiled down to in the end. And I could have picked Robertson, but I still prefer Beglin. And the Neil shout was hard. But then, a bit like the Brucey one when I was talking to Kev earlier on, when you stand up what Phil Neal won as captain and as
he's
player.
the most decorated player in Liverpool's history.
8 league titles and 4 European Cups. Like,
yeah.
Right.
It's obscene, really.
Mm-hmm.
He's a leader. If you put him on the pitch, he's the leader. Do you know what I mean? Straight away, who's going to stand up to him? Who's going to tell him, "Nah, you're wrong"? You know what I mean? Like it's. Am I? Yeah, Grant, super, fair play.
They're interesting.
Yes, that's
I have to say, I thought one of Trent or Robertson would have got in there, but it's hard to argue against Phil Neal because his trophy haul is ridiculous over that amount of time as well. And you're right with Trent; he has changed the game in how fullbacks their output. You know, but at the same time, he's probably changed in the way of how, well, he's changed it going forward. The absolute microscope on him defensively is mental. Now, he hasn't helped himself this year, I don't think, because I don't think his attitude has been quite there. But, like, genuinely, if you told me Trent was going to be bang on form next season, going forward, brilliant, and going back, he's absolutely fine. You know what I mean? You can't have a fella pulling strings 30 yards from an opposition goal and you want them 7 seconds later being, tucking in to cover a centre-back. It's just physically impossible.
It doesn't work.
But I'm surprised. The Beglin one's a great show. I was just interested to see if Robertson got a shout in there because you did have Ray Kennedy.
Robertson,
or Alan Kennedy.
I think the opposite of what Kev said about the fullbacks from the foreign 11, right? You have tons of fullbacks to pick, and it's not fair on the fellas not being mentioned. We mentioned Nickel, but you have Rob Jones who could play left and right back and was brilliant, right?
Rob Jones, if he he suffered badly with shin splints, didn't he?
Yeah.
If Rob Jones stayed fit, and I'm telling you this now, if Rob Jones stayed fit, Gary Neville wouldn't have got a cap for England, right? And he would, I think, you would still be arguing today about Rob Jones as being the best right back Liverpool have ever had. He was that good. He was genuinely that good. He had an engine. He got up and down. Didn't score goals because the big thing about Rob Jones was lads week on week putting a tenner on Rob Jones to get first goal. Never scored for Liverpool, but my God, what a fullback he was. But Phil Neal, I've no issue with Phil Neal and Beglin, and it'll make for interesting reading tomorrow. Centre backs, Kev.
Sami Hyypiä, Virgil van Dijk. Yeah, Sami Hyypiä, Virgil van Dijk. And to be honest, 2 colossuses in the air. Both could read the game really well. Both could pass the ball really well. And with Sammy's positional sense and Virgil's pace, I just think they're an ideal combination for the two. And again, it's like when you look at who would you put in with him, Joel Matip. I think Joel Matip is an excellent centre back, but his body will let him down, and that's just a shame. In time, you hope Ibu Konate could be that guy, but Daniel Agger, no. Good player, not at the level of the others. He just wasn't. And again, you're really limited when you look at who would be better than Sami Hyypiä and Virgil. Not for me. Not that we've had anyway.
No, I think it's fair. I think when you look at the fullbacks, we have a load of them that are Great Britain and Ireland, right? Yeah. But when you look at centre backs, I think you struggle with fullbacks a bit from the rest of the world, whereas I think you struggle with centre backs a little bit when it comes to British. Well, Phil doesn't, but what I'm saying is to partner up and beat them two, I think it'd be difficult, but I know what Phil's going to go for. I absolutely know what he's going to go for.
I'd be amazed if he doesn't go who I
Sorry, what I mean by that is, in them picks, that's fairly straightforward for me. Like, it's fairly straightforward. The rest of the world centre-backs that play for Liverpool. You know, if you look, Matip isn't getting in ahead of either of them. Just isn't. No. It's because Sammy Hyypiä comes into Liverpool and he put a physicality into Liverpool that wasn't there. Liverpool should have won a title sometime between 95 and 1999. And the reason they didn't is because they were brilliant to watch. And if you listen to McManaman and Fowler and anyone else to play for them, they were great to watch, but they'd bash United one week and they'd lose at Coventry the next week. And the reason they lost was because Coventry would clip balls into the box, get physical, and Liverpool couldn't deal with it. Hyypiä comes along and he puts a physicality in. Never the quickest. Read the game brilliantly. I think I'd love to know how many goals he has for Liverpool. Because I would say I'm going to guess about 30. Honestly,
I'll tell you there in a second.
But I think a centre-half, that's a really good pick, in fairness. It's a really, really good pick. He's at Liverpool for 10 years. He cost fuck all from Willem II. And Van Dijk, for me...
He's better again. He's better again.
I think if you asked me this a year ago, I'd tell you Van Dijk would go on to be the greatest centre-half Liverpool have ever had. I'd have
Sammy Hyypiä has 35 goals in 464 total games.
So there you go. A goal every 10 from centre-half, that's good.
11 assists as well.
So there's your centre-halves. Phil.
Yeah.
Centre-backs.
Steve Staunton and Gary Ablett.
Fuck off.
Take the microphone off him.
I would. Can I guess yours?
Mark Wright and John Scales.
Can I guess yours before you do it?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess you're going to say Mark Lawrence and Alan Hansen.
Yeah, because everybody else was muck.
Well, not really. Emlyn Hughes was a great centre back.
No. See, remember 77's the cut off. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Can't talk about people that I wasn't alive for, and I don't think it's right to talk about people I wasn't alive for because I didn't experience them the same way I've experienced the centre backs.
Yeah, I know, but there's so much footage out there that you can see of loads of players.
But come here, once I go past Hansen and Lawrence, I've got Masio, I've got Staunton, I've got Carragher, I've got Scales, I've got Bab, I've got Ruddock,
Phil
I've got
Thompson
Mark
is
Wright.
in there, and has Hansen, Lawrence, and Thompson, Yates, Smith, Carragher. Not short of British/Irish centre backs.
There's only you've got Hansen, Lawrence, and Thompson, Yates, and Smith. You want to have a conversation? We can have a conversation. Carragher's not even close to the conversation. He's in the stands watching the game, right? That's about it.
I agree. I don't think Mark Lawrence gets enough credit for how good he was at Liverpool.
Mark Lawrence and Alan Hansen are Joel Matip and Virgil van Dijk at their peak, right? So that's for anyone who's too young to have seen these live. That's what we looked like in the 80s when these two lads were playing. Like this, when we went back to having Matip and Van Dijk playing beside each other, for me, that's been always the best version of the Klopp defence because you have both of them played in the same manner. Hansen was the imperious, amazing, powerful, dominant centre back, and Lawrence was the fella that you didn't even know was there in the way Matip doesn't. But he came dancing out of midfielder, out into midfield, and he was as capable to step into midfield. He played defensive midfielder for Ireland, right? So like he had that ability to play on the ball and play football. But his ability to defend is so underrated. And what's happened with Lawro, sadly, is people only see him for the co-commentator and that he is with
Studio
BBC.
Analyst at BBC. Yeah.
And I've forgotten the footballer that he was through the 80s.
But he's turned up recently on LFC TV. And when he's on LFC TV, he speaks so fucking well. But when he was with the BBC, it was like he was trying to be
Gav, it wasn't.
or something.
He went through the same thing I've gone through at the moment. He hates football, right? He hated football for a long, long time and had to leave the BBC and get away from football all the time to actually go back to enjoying football. So when he's on LFC TV now, he's back to loving football and enjoying it again and enjoying watching it. So he has an enthusiasm for the game that he didn't have when he was on the BBC. What I don't want to talk about was a co-commentator. I want to talk about was the footballer because he was a class act. He was a class act, was Mark Lawrence. For me, he was a class.
Seriously quick.
Hansen and Lawrence is Philip Bidwell's pick as well. And Lawrence but Hansen was majestic. If you ever want to see what a centre half should do, if you watch the first goal away at Everton when they beat Everton 5 at Goodison, there's a ball in the middle of the park. He steps out, intercepts, goes by a fella who throws his whole life at Hansen, skips over him, and then hits this slide rail pass, which is phenomenal. Like, if Gerrard, Dalglish, Xavi Alonso, any of these players do it, you're playing it on a loop for years. And Hansen hits this. It's unbelievable.
Can I just say one thing about these picks as well, particularly for the English and Irish version, right? I found one thing looking through these players. It's from up to 1998. It's very easy to pick the players because football is a local game.
Yeah.
Up until the 1998 World Cup, 1998 football changes and becomes a global game. So when I'm imagining, Kev, most of your picks are going to really revolve from 1998 onwards, because that's when we get the influx of all the superstars into England. Whereas before then, essentially the best GB and Ireland 11 was the team that won the league year after year. And that's what, it's so easy to pick a team, because when you start looking at the players, that's where they all exist. That's how they all existed. And so it was just such a dominant thought process when I was pulling the 11 together. It's like, you know, this is where the best players were. Nowadays, we don't see that because they don't get to the upper echelon. So when you look at the likes of Trent and you look at the likes of even Elliott coming through at the moment, like, those guys are playing at a level that wasn't there before. And that's why Bellingham excites me. The odd time I watch him at the moment, he excites me because to have that level of talent. Now, he's gone to Germany to realise, and it doesn't surprise me. I think more pathways should be opened up for players in that manner. Like, that excites me because he's essentially a foreign player that's English that's coming back to England, whether it's to Liverpool or not. But I'm just, it's that feeling again that you have on players that are like that. And I even think about Irish players, it's the same thing.
But the funny thing is, like, right, on Bellingham, sorry, Ant Mac says he's signing out for the night, but it's a cracking show so far, and he listened in the morning. But he did say that he felt Carragher was a brilliant centre back between 2004 and 2009. I don't disagree with that. I think if you listen to forwards and other players that played against Carragher during that spell, really Didier Drogba, who was like fucking hated Carragher, because Carragher was just up his hole like for seasons on end, because we just kept playing Chelsea. But the thing with Bellingham is, and it's interesting you talk about him, right, because Bellingham is the hottest property in world football. There's no doubt about that. He's the hottest property in world football. He's 19 years of age. He's 180 or 190 games under his belt, right? He is the hottest prospect in world football, midfield wise. There's maybe forward players out there, defenders that are deadly, but for me, he's above Gavi, Pedri, whoever else you want to talk about, just simply because the amount of games he's played, the rate he's playing them at, the level he's playing them at. He's captain. He's walking around as captain at Dortmund, right? But you're talking about Pats, Germany, and this that. Jude Bellingham goes out and does his business in Germany every week, right? And apart from these German football aficionados that love to watch it, or a lot of people that pretend to watch it, he's just left alone to do it. And that's unheard of in England. Like, if Jude Bellingham breaks through at Birmingham and moves for 30 million quid to Arsenal, he is going to be fucking ridiculed week upon week upon week, and you don't see the Jude Bellingham you see now. You simply don't, because it's all very well being deadly at football and progressing and getting better at football, but your mind, your mental state, he's built this mental state in Germany. You know, he's walking around going, I own this fucking pitch. It always reminds me a bit of the youngster that was at United. He was outrageous. He's played with Derby. He's been with West Ham. You know who I'm speaking about, the left-footed kid.
Chris Raven.
No, he was at United. He went and played for Lazio. He's been fucking everywhere. Someone in the chat will think of the name. But he came. No, this lad came through. I can't think of his name. He came through, and you knew straight away that he just hadn't got the mental ability to carry this brilliant talent that he had, and that's
Luke Chadwick.
That's why Bellingham. Ravel Morrison is the name of the player.
Ravel Morrison.
But that's the thing, right? You knew by looking at him that he's a brilliant talent, but what's gone with Bellingham for me is he's gone away. I see the results, I might see the odd clip of him, I might watch the odd game, but he's just wandering around Germany doing his thing, and he doesn't allow anything to annoy him, and that's why he's coming back as probably the complete midfielder for that age that he's at. And you heard Gerrard talking about him the other day. Gerrard just loves him because he just has the lot. So you've gone Hansen, Lawrenson, which is fair enough. I think you're bang on there. Before we go into the midfielders and forwards, right? The charity stuff. I'm putting it in here in the middle because when I put it at the end, people turn off and you don't hear that and it annoys me, right? So, the charity stuff. Breast cancer research. 12 women running the Dublin Marathon. We're backing them all the way. We're trying to raise 20 grand for them. Okay? And like I said, we won't stop until we get there, right? We're about 10-12% of the way there, right? But it's early doors. They don't run until October. These girls have so much planned. You know, they're doing football blitzes. They're doing all sorts of stuff that they're going to raise money from. We're doing the golf day, which just today we confirmed 32 players playing in that. So we're looking for sponsorships and prizes. LFC Daytrippers at gmail.com if you want to sponsor a whole long drive nearest the pin. Okay, all the money going to charity. If you want to donate a prize, same email address. And you don't have to go and get the prize. You can just email me and go, can I send you X amount of money? Would you go and buy the prize? Absolutely. I've had 3 people already send me money and go, buy a prize, sticker in the raffle. Our target for the day is to hopefully, if we get everything sponsored, it'll be about 4 grand that we'll raise on the day, which will go into the key. Okay? And it's a brilliant cause. We love doing the charity stuff. We only had this conversation the other day. Something come up in one of the shows, and I keep telling people, and I'll keep saying till I'm blue in the face, we love talking football. We bring it all for free. But the biggest things, the biggest buzz we get out of it, and as much as Phil is a mess and bastard, right? The biggest buzz you get out of it, and Phil, be honest, the biggest buzz you get out of it is when you go, they raised that money, they got that money for that child, they got, you know what I mean? Like, as much as we mess and we joke and whatever else, honestly, Liverpool win games, it's amazing. But when you find out that children have gone to America to be treated for this, treated for that, and they have a chance, it's the best thing. It's the best thing that can come out of it. So, you know, if you can help, the link is in the description. And by all means, donate. If you can't donate and you want to give us a prize, LFCDaytrippers at gmail.com. I check the emails every morning, every afternoon, every evening. And if something comes in, I will organise with you to get money off you, and I'll buy the prizes. Or you can send me money to donate for sponsoring the holes or nearest the pin or long drives and stuff like that, right? And then something come up today, and I don't even know if you'll know about this, but I got a message off Andy Young today. I got a message off Keith Plunkett, and he said, this guy has been in contact with us. He was looking for your contact details. And it's about this girl. So I'm just going to read out the GoFundMe, right? I'm going to read out the GoFundMe. And before I do, if you go onto our Instagram, if you go onto our Facebook, if you go onto our Twitter, you will see a post about this girl. You will see a link that you can go to the GoFundMe, and you will see that you can donate, right? Now, we're currently doing this for breast cancer research, but when this come up, I thought, no, you have to do something with this. You have to share it and talk about it on a show, so I'm going to. So let me read this to you, because it's quite moving, but I'm infuriated at the same time, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Sophie Lanigan, a 12-year-old kind, caring, courageous and beautiful young girl, has suffered a life-altering event that has resulted in the loss of all 4 of her limbs. Okay? On the 12th of December 2022, Sophie's mum brought her to the doctor with a high temperature that she had since the night before. As soon as she got to the doctor's, she began to have trouble breathing and was given oxygen. Sophie was rushed to Temple Street Children's Hospital in Dublin in an ambulance. We received a phone call from her parents to say Sophie had suspected pneumonia and was rapidly deteriorating, so had to be put on a ventilator in ICU, every parent's worst nightmare. Okay, sorry, just so you know, this is Leanne Bourne is the person that set up the GoFundMe. It's obviously, I think it's an auntie of Sophie, okay? Later we learned that Sophie had sepsis caused by strep A. Sophie had gone into septic shock and her organs were beginning to fail. Sophie had to be transported to Crumlin's Children's Hospital and put on a stronger ventilator. Sophie spent 2 weeks fighting for her life with her parents, Laura Hughes and Keith Lanigan, by her side every minute as they were told to prepare for the worst. Sophie fought so hard, and finally on Christmas Day was taken off a ventilator. Unfortunately, Sophie woke to the devastating news that the damage caused to her hands and feet were irreversible and amputation was necessary. Sophie spent 4 more weeks in ICU battling infections, dialysis and many other complications, but thankfully started to improve and was strong enough to face her first surgery. Not all of the surgeries went to plan, and Sophie has had more setbacks for 10 more weeks she'd spent in hospital. But Sophie is the most amazing, strong, determined girl. She has battled through again and again. She is our hero, and we are all unbelievably proud. Sophie and her family face a difficult path path ahead, adapting to this new way of life. They will need to make changes to their home to meet Sophie's needs, as well as prosthetics and other adaptive equipment. The cost of this will be daunting. We started this fundraiser because not only would we like to help our hero Sophie, but we would like to help our incredibly strong, brave parents, and brother through an extremely difficult time. Thanks for your support. Now, my only issue with this is there's a beautiful photo of it, looks like Sophie and her father, and he's in a United jersey, and it made me think twice, but then I went ahead with it anyway, right? That's a joke. I'm only joking. But it's an unbelievable story at 12 years of age. Now, they started this off a day ago with a 40,000. When I seen it today, it was at 40,000 as a target on GoFundMe, and I was like, that's not enough. Like, the amount of money you have to spend in your house to adapt it is colossal. Prosthetics are colossal. Surgeries, physio, anything you can do to make this child's life as normal as you possibly can, because she's facing a huge challenge that she didn't expect at 12 years of age to face 6 months ago, or 4 or 5 months ago. So it's currently sitting at 83,000 they've raised in, like, honestly, 2 days, right? The target sits at 70, but I think that should be closer to 100, okay? Because honestly, 100,000 will get you nowhere in this world, in this country, to get you prosthetics, adjust for in your house, physio, whatever it might be. So what we're asking, and we're going to throw it out a couple of times over the next couple of weeks, depending on where the family want to go with this with regards to targets. But on our social media, it's there if you want to donate. Share it like you would share the breast cancer research one, and if they up that target, we're willing to. I put in a donation today on behalf of the podcast, and I simply wrote on it that we'll support it now and as much support as needed in the future with anything they need done. So, like I said, the GoFundMe is there. It's on all our social medias. I didn't put it into the show description tonight. That's my fault. I will put it in afterwards. So anyone watching the show afterwards will be able to see that, will be able to click on the link, and will be able to donate, all right? And the reason I'm infuriated by this is because no 12-year-old in this country should have limbs amputated and have to go online looking for €100,000 to make their life some way normal and help them. No child. We have a housing crisis. We have all this, that, and the other going on. Absolutely fine. But as far as I'm concerned, the children of this country are the future of this country. That's always been the truth. And I know there's loads of kids out there and there's loads of things goes wrong and whatever. But honestly, like, it infuriates me that anybody has to turn around and go, we've no option but to ask strangers for money in order to make our child's life comfortable, all right, and let her progress to as normal life as possible at 12 years of age to take all this on board. And that's what it absolutely infuriates me. So what I'm going to say to this is, we always do charity work. We'll always do it. We'll never stop doing it. But if you watch any football podcast out there, any football YouTube, I don't care if they're Liverpool, United, anyone, if you watch any of them and you know any of them and they want to come on board with us, right, in any sort of way to support projects that we will pick between us to help children in particular, I'm absolutely open to it. And I work all day. Like, I'm not going to lie to you, I work all day, but I'm happy to take this on and turn to any Liverpool podcast, right, any United, Chelsea, Arsenal, whoever, and make this about football content creators joining up and saying, you know what, that girl needs 100,000 and we're going to do it in a day. We're not going to piss around for months. We're not going to piss around for weeks. We're going to do it in a day because we've millions of people watch, and that's what we want to do. So I'm putting it out there. I'm not going to go annoying any content creators. I'm not going to go banging on their doors. But there's plenty of people that watch this show, are in the chat, are on our Twitter. They know me. They know all the lads. They can get in contact like that, right? And whether you like us, don't like us, if you would like to help children and embarrass governments by raising this sort of money very, very quickly, I'm absolutely open to it. So I want to wish Sophie all the best. And I'm telling you now, from me, Kev, Phil, and anybody else that's on this channel, if Sophie needs anything, and I mean anything, she rings us or she messages us and we'll make it happen. Wherever it can be, we'll do our absolute best to make it happen. We'll let Phil go down and tell her how he hates football. Like, she'll have the crack. You know what I mean? We'll send Andy down. Andy will tell her all about the firemen and all, the fire brigades. He loves all that. We let Shawnee, don't let Shawnee go. We'll only be talking about Evan and Dickett, and it won't end well. But what I mean is, if she needs anything, if the family need anything, or they're fundraising, whatever, they have to get on to us and tell us, and we will throw it out there. And if we can turn up, we can turn up. So I've taken a blows your time with that, but I think it's important to do it because it's a harrowing story, to be quite honest with you. But at the same time, it's infuriating that I'm having. I'll happily do it, but for people to having to go and ask strangers for money in this country, which is one of the richest countries in the world, and you can't help children like this, I think it's an absolute disgrace. And all I can say to Sophie is, your family, look, I've read about this about 5 hours ago, and I'm incredibly proud of you, but your family must be incredibly proud of you. Your family, your extended family must have to be very proud of your immediate family, and judging by the reaction you've got today, it's a phenomenal resource of people to have around you. Keep them there. They'll get you through it. And the LFC Daytrippers and anybody else that makes football content wants to join us in helping Sophie or other kids in the future, I'm absolutely open to it. If it means me having to work another 2 hours a day, I've no problem doing it. Absolutely none. And I know the lads would have no problem helping out either. Midfielders. Kev, this is where the fun starts for Kev.
Yeah, because I had a real decision. For me, I went with 4-4-2, so I want 2 box-to-box mids who can do it all. And I went with Xavi Alonso and Jan Molby.
Oh, Molby is a show.
I'm a bit older than Phil, and I love Jan Molby. I loved Jan Molby when he played for Denmark in the '86 World Cup.
Yeah, no, we're both on the same page, Kev. Yeah, I adored Jan Molby, but you said box to box. Jan Molby never left the centre circle. That's a fact. He went from one side of the centre circle to the other. There's no boxing there.
Jan Molby is 61 goals, 42 assists. And both players love a goal from outside the box. Both players can bang, and their passing range is outrageous.
I really wish our teams could play against each other.
That's what it is. It's going to be a row in the morning over.
Xabi Alonso, I think, is probably the one player of the two, because I could have gone for Mascherano as well, but I didn't go for Mascherano for the pure and simple reason that I think the best version of him was at Barcelona as a centre-back, with the game in front of him and the dictating of play. Xabi Alonso, he was good for us, but he was ridiculous for Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. I think he's the one player, I think, that really kicked on and improved after leave. It doesn't happen often that players leave Liverpool and find out the grass isn't always greener on the other side. That's kind of like what it is like for the majority. But Alonso was just different. He was a great player and he got better. And it's kind of annoying to see him get better with someone else. But no, that would be my two.
Molby's a shout. Alonso was a shout. Alonso was just a joy to watch. But Molby, you see, Molby, John Motson passed away last week or the week before, and John Motson and Jan Molby are involved in the best bit of commentary in football of all time. Where in the '86 Cup final for the rush goal, where Molby gets it and literally takes 2 touches of the ball in one goal, but just bang bang, and it's like, and it's the famous "oh I say," you know, as he and then goes on about his vision. So Molby and Alonso, I've no arguments against. I'm sure there's more players you could throw in there, the likes of a Mascherano, but I've no problem with them. Phil, you've gone 4-2-3-1. So what's your 2?
I'm amazed, Kev, that you didn't pick any of the lads we've had under Klopp. I'm amazed you haven't gone for. Okay.
I couldn't, because Fabinho, I just don't think has been there long enough, and I don't think he's better than either of the other two. And Gini Wijnaldum, he was good, but that's what he was. He was a good player. He wasn't a great player. He was just a very good player. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It was what the midfield that Klopp needed at the time. with 3 very good central midfielders who could contain and organise and be what he wanted them to be. But
And
I
did you
don't
not
think
consider
any of the
Sally
3
Fair?
had an X factor. Sorry?
Sally.
It's not a Legends match.
You said box to box.
Yeah, what box? 6 yard to the 12 yard to the bleeding 18 yard he ran. No, I think that's fair. So Phil, you're 2 in a 4-2-3-1.
Yeah, I'm smashing you, Kev. Like, honest to God, I looked at what you're picking there, right?
Can I guess again?
The only midfield you should have picked there was Alonso and Mascherano, right? That's what you should have been anchoring your midfield, because that is the best balanced midfield we've ever had since my team existed in the 80s. Go on, go for it, Gav. Who do you think I'm going for?
I think you'll definitely go Graham Souness. Souness and Gerrard.
Yeah, no. So I went with Steve McMahon and Paul Stewart.
Fuck off.
Shut up!
Who have you got?
I've got Ronnie Whelan and Graham Souness. So if you're talking about Xabi Alonso, Ronnie Whelan could do everything Alonso could do, right?
Whelan was
and he could
unbelievable.
play centre, and he could play
very good,
centre back, and he could score volleys from 45 yards out against the Russians in Euro 88, right? That made you jump off a seat and came off his shin. It was better than Wayne Rooney's overhead shin. So it was like, so for me, Ronnie Whelan. But Ronnie Whelan is a footballer. Not many people remember Ronnie Whelan because obviously not as old as us, Kev.
Done
Right?
loads of stuff at left back and everything for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Played
Played
left
everywhere.
back, centre back towards the back end of his career.
Left
won European
midfield.
Cups,
Done loads at left
won
midfield.
league titles. Was a captain. And probably an unsung hero when people talk about great teams and great players, because he's just an under the radar fella that filled in absolutely everywhere, but was a brilliant midfielder, an absolutely brilliant midfielder, right? And was before Molby stepped in and did what you were talking about. Whelan was doing it, and after Molby got injured, he stepped in and did it again, and was spraying the ball around and controlling the midfield and being able to do it. But he could play. When Souness left, Whelan was able to play alongside Molby and be the dirty player. Love
to put his foot in. But if you think about, like, some of the highlights for Whelan, he scores 2 in the Milk Cup final, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Ben's
scored an Og as well in one.
Right, and then he's the man that actually clips the ball to rush for that third in the 3-1 in '86.
Yeah,
but then mad stuff like FA Cup at Highbury in '92 against Portsmouth. Liverpool are losing to a Darren Anderton goal. Barnes clips this free kick over last minute. Clips this free kick over the wall. It hits the post. Goes back across the box. Who's there? Ronnie Whelan's just hanging around there, knocking in the net. You're like
sniffing there.
Just like you'd expect, like Rush to be there, or one of the forwards. Now Ronnie Whelan's there, and he scores a deadly own goal at Old Trafford. Do you remember where he lobs Grobbelaar from about 30 yards?
Immense. And Grobbelaar has no idea what's going on.
He was brought up in Finglas. Like there was no way he was going to turn up.
He's product of home farm.
He was born in Finglas West. He was born about 5 minutes from my house, and he went to the same school as I went to. And
so I've got Ronnie Whelan but then put him alongside Graham Souness. Like Ronnie Whelan scored 1 in 10. Going back to your point, right? He was a 1 in 10 for a midfielder who wasn't really an attacking midfielder. That's a mad return you're getting out of him as well, right? And then when you put him alongside Graham Souness, who was also a 1 in 7 midfielder, right? You're getting goals from midfield, and Souness is probably the angriest footballer that existed until Roy Keane appeared, right? So, but
he's the one player, Phil. He's the one player. You know the way they go on about Messi or Maradona, what the year is. He's the one player I always think of. If you could teleport him as he is into today's game, he's the one I want to see. Play. Because honestly, he would, and I mean this, he would eat the likes of Keane, Vieira, Gattuso, all these fellas. He would marmalise them.
So angry.
And he was.
So
but the thing was, right? He was such a good footballer. He was a fucking brilliant footballer. But like, do you know what he reminds me of? In the film The Commitments, right? In the film The Commitments, there's a fella that plays the drum called Mick Don't Fuck With Wallace, right? And Mick Gard's good on the drums. He's really good at the drums. But if someone skips his mate at the bar, he's going to cause absolute fucking carnage in the whole place. And that was Souness. He was brilliant as a footballer. But my Jesus, he enjoyed as much, if not more, he enjoyed when it got
carnage.
Yeah, just stamping on fellas and didn't give
the
a
fact
fuck.
the fact I can't pick Suarez, I needed to find someone that was completely nuts, right? And it is very hard to find fellas who are brilliant that were completely nuts in the English and the Irish 11, right? But he fits into brilliant but completely stonewall barmy as well. But brilliant. Like, don't forget, he has this monstrous falling out with Phil Thompson, and Thompson thinks he stole the captaincy while Thompson was crap, and Paisley gives him the captaincy, and those two have a feud for years, not even for like a week or until he leaves. This goes on for years and years and years, and there's bad blood for years. Like, this is, when I think of Souness, I actually think of the angriest human alive. Whenever I think of Souness, and you think of all these hard men in the, all those Lock Stock movies that came out, right? I always immediately imagine, should have just got Graham Souness in the 80s to do this.
Honestly, but that's why I love him teleport into this time, because honestly, I think he would go out in the Premier League today, right, and be the best footballer midfielder in the Premier League today, right, right. But at the same time, if you want to have a row, he's absolutely willing to go to war with you until one of you's died. Like, genuinely, that's how good he was. So I can't. The only thing I will say is you pick Whelan and Souness here, and I'm looking down. There's 4 spots left here, and I know you're pulling a horrendous one here later on. Right? I just know by the numbers that are left in the positions. Anyway, Kev, rest of the world.
Kev's midfield's dead. You may as well
wingers,
just put him
left and right wingers.
Left and right wingers. Sadio Mane and Mo Salah. Left and right. It's just, they're just too good to leave out.
Fair play, John Giles there.
Ooh. What? I
4-4-2 there, Bill. You got to just trust it.
Look, we recency bias aside, they're just ridiculous. Mo Salah's goal return for Liverpool, when I looked at my front two, Salah's ahead of them both combined already. And it's just, he's an outrageous footballer. And if you want 4 forwards in your side, and I do, then there's no better outside forwards that we've ever had. We've just never had them as good or even come close to those two. Sadio is a ridiculous footballer. Got him at the right time, and he's another one who kicked on to heights that none of us ever really saw coming. But whatever about Sadio, nobody saw Salah coming. Nobody. I mean, I remember before we signed him, and people were like, "Nah, there's just no way."
Me.
You weren't alone, mate.
But the big thing on Salah was when he was turning up.
Big on Salah. You can go back to the podcast when we signed him.
But he was seen by loads.
Saying this is the perfect thing.
But he was seen by loads. He was seen by loads as a backup to Coutinho, Firmino, Mane.
Yeah,
that's what he was seen as. And now,
I saw him
if you look at his numbers, Salah has 3 goals or assists every 4 games. He has 3 goals or assists, 3 goal involvements every 4 games. Right, in his career, his Liverpool career. It's ridiculous. Like, there's just no way he's not on the side. And I understand Mane, because I think Mane is the most important signing he's ever made. I think he's the most important signing he's ever made, Klopp at Liverpool.
At the time, I suppose, yeah.
No, I think he's the most important he's ever made, and I'll tell you why. Because if he signs Mane in the summer of 2016, right, and remember, he signs him for 34 million or something,
34
right?
million, yeah.
Right? He signs him from Southampton, right? And Mkhitaryan is going to United for less than that from Borussia Dortmund. And everyone's telling you United have done us dirty. They've got Mkhitaryan, Mane. And remember, it was his first big signing, because he does nothing in the January, bar the centre half that he put up front.
Colker.
Yeah, and then in that summer he brings in Wijnaldum, he brings in Matip. But that's his first big money. It's 35 million. It's quite big money at the time.
Yeah.
And if that goes wrong, people start doubting Klopp in the transfer market early on. That's my opinion. If that goes wrong,
fair.
But he is the fulcrum to everything Liverpool have done for me since
the irony is
2016.
he didn't sign him at Dortmund because he didn't like his haircut. I can't be dealing with someone with a gold streak in his hair, and Klopp walked away.
Yeah, there you go.
Didn't know it was a birthmark.
Phil, you're 3 behind the 1, in front of the 2. The left.
You want all 3 of them?
No, left and right.
No, just left and right. So, shit. Hang on, I have to look at my notes. Well, the left is easy. Johnny Barnes is going in the left of the three, right?
The greatest.
He wins.
Right, so in there he goes, and he does whatever he wants. On the right, then I've Steve McManaman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So
I know it's coming here. You're just being a prick. Well, anyway, because your words to me today was, this is not a draft. So people that think it's a draft can fuck off. It's my opinion. And I knew something was coming straight away. But anyway, McManaman.
But okay, so McManaman, the only
Loved him.
footballer we're talking about that played for Liverpool in the 90s, maybe with the exception of Fowler, right? But in terms of if you stop McManaman, that anything, and if you stop Liverpool in the 90s, you basically you crowded McManaman out.
They used to mark him.
And they used to put 2 and 3 players on him because they didn't have to worry about anything else that was going on in the whole team. Right?
I remember match of the day one Saturday night. Liverpool played Sheffield Wednesday at Anfield, and I'm going to say it was around '97. And Sheffield Wednesday turned up, and the BBC match of the day done a thing. You know the way they show the goals and the highlights. They done a thing on McManaman being followed around the pitch by this. I want to say it was someone like John Pemberton, right? Just following McManaman around the pitch for the whole game. Not interested in anything else. And it was the first time he kind of went, fuck me, they're like actually marking this fella. But he glided, Phil. He glided.
He was untouchable, and he was so good. I know he goes to Real Madrid, but what he does at Real Madrid, he was doing for Liverpool. What people sort of miss out with the McManaman thing is that he didn't get better at Real Madrid. He just continued doing what he was doing for Liverpool, right? He just had better supporting cast around him, and he was able to be able to stand and be a player that they wanted to get rid of at Madrid, but was so good they couldn't, right? Because he was loved by Zidane, by Roberto Carlos, by the big players in that Real Madrid, and they felt he was a bit like Solari. They felt that he was a fulcrum part of the team, but not just. He turns up in a Champions League final and bangs one into the roof of the net. Like he turns up in the big moments for them, but he always turned up in the big moments for Liverpool. If he didn't turn up, it didn't happen. You think of the '92 FA Cup. That's McManaman. Do you know what I mean? Like that's his announcement onto the stage. He breaks on when Giggs comes on, and they talk about Giggs the way he went for United, whatever. But for me, McManaman was a superior player, had a bigger goal threat. And when I think about it, it goes back to your point about soonness. And I haven't got onto Barnes yet, but you could lift McManaman and put McManaman into modern day football, and he'd probably thrive in the way Salah thrived, because he'd have more players, he'd have more space to operate in, and he wouldn't be subject to the tackles he was. And that leads me into John Barnes, because we've done podcasts on John Barnes, we've interviewed John Barnes.
I talk about him all day. I literally set up a YouTube channel called Let's Talk John Barnes.
Honestly, right? And what he did for football, for me, in 85, 86, growing up, and like me and Pete were mates back then. And I'll be straight, like it wasn't common to see different coloured skinned people in Ireland at that point in time, right? And when you grew up idolising someone that was from an immigrant heritage in terms of from Jamaica that came to England, to be able to blow up the way he did, to do what he did for football in England. For me, but to do it as a Liverpool player, it leads on to something that was common with McManaman as well. He never gets his flowers as an England player. McManaman, they can't figure out, in the 90s, they can't figure out how best to get the talent out of McManaman.
And the simple thing is to just give him the ball. It's not hard.
Put him in that in a forward position. Stop worrying about positions and put him in
left
that area.
Or right, or in a 10, and say to him, you just stay around. You don't have to come back and work that hard. But when we get on, McManaman done it for years at Liverpool, where Liverpool will win a ball and he'd be standing in the centre circle going, give me it. And he just lets the ball run by him and off he takes. If you look at it, he might be man of the match in the 92 FA Cup final. He wins the 95 League Cup final for Liverpool. He then scores an unbelievable goal away at Celtic. Do you remember in the UEFA Cup? He runs to the end of the pitch in the last minute. He then goes to Madrid. He scores in one, if not two, European Cup finals. Right? He's just an unbelievable footballer, Steve McManaman. And the thing about him was, I was only saying it to Shawnee the other night, he had the ability to get the ball 6 inches from the touchline and glide by a fella and you wouldn't know how the ball was still on the pitch. It was ridiculous. And I've spoken at length about John Barnes. He is still and will always be my favourite ever Liverpool footballer.
But to me, John Barnes changes. But to me, John Barnes changes, a bit like when we talked with the goalkeepers, changes the perception as to what a footballer can be in England, right? Like the type and style of footballer. Without John Barnes, you don't have a Gascoigne. Without John Barnes, you don't have the Phil Fodens. You don't have the Harvey. You don't have that flair, the understanding that flair can be a thing that's accepted into what was then a very simple. Liverpool were very different in that they were a pass and move team, right? The vast majority of teams then were big man, small man up front, launch the ball, push it up. Like Big Jack did it for Ireland. That was the tactics of the day for English football. It was all about pressure, and the belief was, and it was true in Europe, that the foreign teams who wanted to play pass and move football couldn't deal with the aerial onslaught that was coming on. And it lasted for almost 2 decades in terms of this. But what John Barnes gave was to kids like me growing up, this belief that we could play football, and we were able to play football like Brazilians. And John Barnes, the awakening moment, the moment I remember clearly of my awareness of who John Barnes was, is the goal against Brazil when he's still a Watford player before he comes to Liverpool, right? And when he signs for Liverpool, it was the first signing I remember that truly, and this is before 24-hour sport. This is way before, like you read about the thing in a paper.
You got 1 match a week if you are lucky.
Right? And you have the big match on ITV on a Sunday, right, or UTV on a Sunday, right, and like that's what we had. And John Barnes arriving there was the moment. It was the first transfer I truly remember going, oh my God, we've just signed John Barnes, right? And I know I was a kid at the time, but it was just like, oh my God. And it's the signing of Barnes, it's the signing of Aldridge, it's the signing of Houghton, and the son Spackman, and that brings the Kenny Dalglish era in, the from the cup winning double team to the most dominant Liverpool team ever until the Klopp era. I call it the most dominant team because what they do is what Klopp has done. But had they not been involved in a European ban at that stage, they would have been a match to that AC Milan team. And my greatest regret, to the day I'll die as a Liverpool fan, is never getting to see John Barnes play against Baresi in a European Cup final. That is my greatest singular regret as a football fan, because that would have been 2 of the greatest players of all time at their absolute height, and to see that as a clash to me would have been I would have been blessed. Like I've seen so many brilliant ones, but that as a Liverpool fan would have been the one I really wanted to see. I wanted to see Barnes against Baresi, and looking back, it's the one that we missed out on. And I can't talk enough about it. And it's the same. I know people are giving out that McManaman ran down his contract and all this type of stuff.
Well,
I don't care.
What he did in the pitch. Robert Maguire says McManaman is sour towards Liverpool these days. He also left, so he shouldn't get in there. Although I did really love him. Robert, go and listen to the We Are Liverpool podcast. The latest episode from the club itself is with Steve McManaman. And he's actually working with the club now today, believe it or not. I didn't know that till the other day, but he is. And he talks about leaving Liverpool and how it came about. And when you actually listen to it, and Robbie Fowler's sitting beside him while he's telling this, and Robbie Fowler, Robbie Fowler, if you're spoofing, Robbie Fowler will tell you. But Robbie Fowler never opens his mouth while McManaman was talking about this. So it actually changes. It didn't change me feelings on McManaman. I just thought he was brilliant. He was before Fowler, he was a real kind of street footballer. You could absolutely relate to him. Fowler comes along and I still think it's probably the best finisher the club's ever had. But John Barnes, I just can't talk enough about him. He'll always be my favourite Liverpool player because the stuff he done with football was just outrageous. Pace, power, skill, vision. Crossing was unreal, finishing, heading, you name it, he had a lot, and he should be.
Imagine John Barnes nowadays in that team, with Klopp. Mm-hmm. I keep going.
I'm just trying to buy it.
When I was thinking of these players, I was thinking how many of these could play modern day football. So I was thinking the true greats transcend their area, if that makes sense. And that to me, I think there's loads of them that could have done it. Yeah, I think every single player I've named, maybe with the exception of Phil Neal, which is probably harsh given what he won. But if you look at right the way through that team, I think they can transcend and play the modern game.
Yeah, I think there's loads in that Liverpool side of the 80s that could have, like Rush definitely would. Rush 100% would.
Yeah.
Souness would.
Beardsley.
Beardsley was a fucking player as well. Right, Kev, you're 2 forwards.
Suarez and Torres. If you almost feel cheated, the fact that Luis Suarez thought he was signing for Liverpool to play alongside Fernando Torres, and we never got to see it. We got Andy Carroll instead, and what they would have complemented each other in the fact that one was an absolute dog who would run and run and run, but had skill and ingenuity and South American flair and just individual brilliance. And Torres inside the box was stone. He was just stone cold. He was composure personified, could glide past players. He was quick, but he was quick with the ball. When you were talking about McManaman, I was thinking like Steve McManaman wasn't blessed with raw pace, but he was really quick with the ball at his feet. Torres was really quick with the ball at his feet, and he had a great football brain to be in the right place at the right time to pick up positions. And I think the two would have complemented each other brilliantly in the fact that you could have had Suarez playing off of Fernando Torres. It would have been outrageous and frustrated that we never got to see it.
I think
it was like they were just that. You know,
you're talking about players leaving and kind of tarnishing their reputation. I actually think Torres will tarnish his reputation more if he'd have stayed because I think he's finished. I think he's finished when he leaves Liverpool. I think he's had injuries. I think his head's gone. You see him at Chelsea. He wins the European Cup at Chelsea. I think he might win the
scored a penalty as well.
And I think he might win a Europa League when Benitez is there as well. But as a footballer, from what you've seen at Liverpool, he was a shadow of himself at Chelsea. And the writing was on the wall, Liverpool, because his form wasn't great before he leaves Liverpool. But he was genuinely, like, Torres was electric. Absolutely electric. And Suarez, for me, was just madness. Bottled up madness. Yeah. But, like you say, like I seen a reel the other day of like all his different goals he scored. It's fucking mad. Suarez was insane. He scored them overhead.
The one against Norwich for his hat trick from probably 40 yards out, where he chips the keeper. The audacity just to try it for a hat trick goal is, and you'd expect nothing less of him. That was the thing. He'd have seen it, and you'd like, he's got to do this, isn't he? And bang, he just does it. He was just different to almost anything that I'd seen.
Poor Norwich
in the Premier League.
Norwich got an awful time, didn't he? Like he scores 4 against Norwich at Anfield, and the second one is
did it twice, I think.
The second one is unreal. The third one though, where he's flicking her over Leroy Fair and just hitting on the half volley while he's falling over. Suarez was just magnificent as a footballer, like absolutely magnificent.
Mad as a box of frogs, like, but
yeah, no, it's actually that's a serious side you put together there. To be fair, now, Phil,
I picked Suarez as well. I don't care.
So you have a number 10 and a number 9.
Yeah.
Who are you going with? Come on.
So in the middle of my tree, right? Mm-hmm. I've gone with Nigel Clough.
You haven't.
I don't think he was utilised correctly at Liverpool, and that's how he played for Nottingham Forest. Had he done that, he probably would have been one of the greatest Liverpool players of all time.
But he wasn't. So who you picked?
So then that was fair. That's fair. It wasn't. So then I actually did pick Stan Collymore, because again he could play in that role.
Right, I'm just trying to think of names now, just to fucking annoy me.
I was earlier on.
By the way, Collymore and Fowler scored like 50, 60 goals between them over 2 seasons.
Collymore's first season is just off the charts.
Yeah, madness. And Robbie Fowler's favourite playing partner to this day is Stan Collymore. So there you go.
And I have massive...
Give me a man in the middle
Robbie
behind
Keane. Robbie Keane. Because he throws cartwheels.
Who are you picking? Come on, let's go to bed.
Some lads, Neil Mellor. So in the middle there, I'm picking Dalglish. I did pick Kenny, right? So my three behind the striker is Maka, Dalglish, and Barnes.
Okay. Now you know what you're doing here.
That's immense, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like genuinely, think about it. You can play anyone up front then.
Yeah. Right. So who are you picking up front?
Steven Gerrard.
You're not picking Ian Rush up front?
No. I'm putting Gerrard up front.
You can't. You can. It's up to you.
Can, but
sorry.
He's never played a striker in his life.
Hang on. Gerrard's best position for Liverpool ever was playing just on the shoulder of Torres. And so many of those games, I challenge anyone to go back and watch it. He actually played as the furthest man forward. He never came back. Benitez didn't want him in his own half the time, so he always played as the most advanced. And if you watch, Torres dropped off to the bottom end of the D and defended and pressed.
So your idea behind all this is that Gerrard drops in, and that Dalglish probably goes up front, and then.
Do you see that four? Every one of them can play midfield. So if I want to change my formation into a Klopp-like midfield with 3 in the middle, I can do it. If I want to go 4, I can go wingers. I can put McManaman wide. I can put Barnes wide. I can play through to the middle. I can drop. Gerrard.
You can play Gerrard on the right.
Yeah, I can even go 3. I can even go 3 at the back if I want, and move Lawrenson into midfield as well to make 5 across the middle. So Kev, when you're picking
I'm struggling as to how you exclude Ian Rush.
So am I, to be fair.
Because Rush is ridiculous.
That's
so underrated.
That's a fair challenge, right? But Welsh people aren't real, so you can't.
I think they are real.
No, I know Dave Thomas.
They checked and they are real.
No, there's no real Welsh people in the world, right? They don't exist. So, from my point of view, no, honestly, if we have that front four, we're scoring enough goals, and you aren't scoring on me, so it's like I only need to score 1 a match, and Kenny scores 1 and 3, Gerrard scores 1 and 3.
That midfield too is guaranteed a red card. They're guaranteed a red card.
But you know what, Kev? Then I can drop one of the front 4 back into midfield, and I'm not going to even break it.
Okay. I can see some sense in it, but I struggle with Rush. We're having a chat the other night.
Yeah.
Go on, Gerrard is.
Well, you see, I can easily swap Gerrard and Kenny if I wanted as well, because you could put Stevie back in the 10 and put Kenny up front, and Kenny was a goal scorer when he had to play up, and he led the line himself before Rush came along. So there's I wanted options. I wanted goal scoring options.
If it was me personally, I have no issue with your team. If I was to remove one out of it to get Rush in, it'd probably be McManaman. And I'd take McManaman out. I'd leave Whelan and Souness where they are. I'd have Gerrard off the right, Barnes off the left, Dalglish behind Rush. And if you needed to, you could stick Gerrard back into midfield 3 if you wanted to.
I'm not doing that though.
Red Steve says he's been to Wales and there was people there.
Yeah, but they weren't Welsh people.
See, you didn't check.
There was lots of people. Lots of people there trying to find Welsh people. Okay. The only Welsh people exist is Fireman Sam.
Me and Charlie were having a discussion the other night about Rush or Alan Shearer, and I just couldn't get my head around the fact that anyone would pick Alan Shearer over Ian Rush. I just could not get my head around it. Shearer's a brilliant goal scorer, but Rush done everything. Like, I mean everything. Like, he pressed defenders, he ran the channels, you know, he got loads of assists, he scored every type of goal. Rush was just phenomenal.
I am not disputing any of that, right? And when I was considering the team, I was trying to figure how do I get Rush in there, right? But I come back to it, like, it wasn't just like going back to I know it's mad, but then why am I putting Fowler in? Because if I want a more fluid type forward that's an out-and-out goal scorer, right, who has a ridiculous strike rate, then why am I putting Fowler into the team? Because I need to find a way to shoehorn him in. But from my point of view, I've got now Steven Gerrard, John Barnes, Steve McManaman and Kenny Dalglish. Every single one of those players dominated the Liverpool team in the decade that they played for Liverpool. Every single one of those players are a goal scorer. And then I still have Souness and Real and chipping in with goals from midfield. And I've got Hansen and Lawrence and chipping in goals from the back. And I've got Phil Neal score goals from right back. And I'm in penalties.
Okay. So, to finish, Phil's team in a 4-2-3-1 is Clements in goal. Back four of Phil Neal, Jim Beglin, Alan Hansen, Mark Lawrenson. Midfield 2 of Whelan and Souness with McManaman, Barnes, Dalglish behind Gerrard, but he has qualified that way. I'll just move them around wherever I want because they're all deadly. Fair enough. Kev has a 4-4-2.
That's what Klopp does.
Yeah, he has Alisson in goal. He's Arbeloa, Risa, Hyypiä, Van Dijk at back four. Midfield 2 of Alonso and Moby. Either side of that you have Salah and Mane, and up front you have got Suarez and Torres. So what I'll do is I'll put this together. I think Keith's quite good at doing this. We'll put these together. We'll put the two teams out on our Twitter tomorrow, on our Instagram, and you can vote on them. Vote Phil or vote Kev. But like, I know what's coming there. Like, I'm just going to get fucking notification after notification going, where's this fella? And why isn't this fella in? And I'm kind of going, I'll just go back and watch the show.
Everyone is gonna see my team. Every single one of them is going to be on. Why is McManaman in there? Why isn't Dean Rush in there? That's all you're gonna get. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Genuinely, that's all you're gonna get.
I know. I might have to turn off the notifications tomorrow. Just
But
to
it'll
let- just to
drive,
let
it'll drive interaction, Gav. That's what you want. Interaction.
No, not really. Not really. I'm happy just to do shows and then piss off at the next one, to be
clicks.
quite honest with you. That's been the midweek fix. It has been the ultimate Liverpool 11, Ireland and Great Britain versus the rest of the world. Thanks a million to Kev. Thanks a million to Phil. Thanks to everyone in the chat for all your comments and suggestions as we went through. Don't forget to check out bookmakers.com. Don't forget to check out breast cancer research, and don't forget to check out our social media for Sophie and her GoFundMe as well. That's it. Talk to you in a bit. Over and out.